All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Imris Saga Rising Shadows, Chapter 3, Session number 11, and what will be the final session, at least for a few weeks, while I am gone and other people are busy. How's everybody doing tonight? We are unfortunately down to one Marissa and one Charlie, but that's okay. We're going to soldier on. I've got some info about what their characters will be doing. So we'll run through that.
Despite all the terrible things in the world, I have the roughest right now because my tummy kind of hurts.
Right.
But I'm, unbelievably brave right now. I'm doing my best. I'm currently sitting in a chair. I'm doing pretty good, though. Thank you. I'm waiting for my medal.
I'm going to assume that nobody from the Australian government is ever going to watch this in a timely manner. But I found out yesterday that we can't get married because it would drop our income by $1,500 a month.
Wow.
So we're still going to do everything else that we were going to do. It's just going to be a celebration of our relationship instead of we are legally married. So,
screw the government. That's why.
That was fun. Yeah, well, we don't earn so much money, and by we I mean Ren doesn't earn so much money that it is breaking anything up for me to continue getting our equivalent of welfare. But apparently it would. So that was fun. That's my week. Dealing with non-wedding stuff now.
Wow. We'll sound fun.
Yeah, we're going to do wedding band exchanges.
You still have to sign a bunch of paperwork. I mean, that's the worst part.
Yeah, well, I don't have to spend $500. Like, really, they're saving me money by being fucked.
All right.
I wanted Sean to just come in with something that was deeply tragic, that like, sore tummy, wedding can't happen, giant Sean jump. I'm glad that you don't have anything to jump over the top with.
But I could give you guys a country music song. You know, my tractor broke down, my dog died, my woman left me, and my pawpaw got locked up for making meth in the trailer.
And that's like Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, my trailer left me and my dog.
It's more of a Mariah Carey, I think, to be honest. But
I don't know that has Mariah Carey ever sing of anything of substance? It's a Jewel song. That's what it is.
Jewel. Yeah. I haven't heard a Jewel reference in far too long. I mean, Run the Jewels, yes, but like some straight up classic Jewel. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think on that note,
Andrew, I need the next tavern music you play to be Jewel.
I'd have to find it. I could, but I won't. I just, I don't think we're ready for that here on the Imris Saga.
Imris isn't ready for a Jewel-based minstrel.
No. All right.
What part at college would Jewel be? That's the real question.
Jewel's a fighter. That's just factual.
Valor Bard fighter, maybe?
No, just...
All right. So, I'm going to go ahead and jump us all in. So as everything, you might remember, starts to crumble away and you all individually feel yourselves kind of floating in space as everything turns into a white void. Your companions, that's your left and right, can no longer be seen as you look around. You begin to lose a strong sense of self. And in each of you, some small part feels that this should be unsettling to you, but it's strangely not. As you're kind of half floating, as though you were in thick, soupy air or under some kind of spell. You feel time passing. It might be minutes, it might be days, might be decades, or it might just be a moment as you kind of feel the inhalation of your own chest. And as that happens, this kind of white void starts to seem less void-like and more blank, like a canvas awaiting something, some possibility, perhaps. And each of you feels as though you could summon things with your thoughts, and at least here they would become real. I'm going to start with Ubas for this one, so you can get a feel of kind of what this is, and then I will go down the line based off of this list that I have. So, for Uba, we see the feeling calls to them, regret, and something is summoned. We see, this is based off of what I talked about first with, we see a gold coin appears. It is singular and alone. Then another clink, clink, clink again and again, till a cascade of riches flow into a pile. Atop the gold, gems, and jewelry, our camera sees a castle in miniature. In fact, it is the castle and oasis of Mael Larath. Sitting next to it is a kobold, playing like it is an oversized dollhouse set into a sandpit. We realize that the kobold is Upa, and the perspective shifts over to that person. Suddenly, we're overlooking the oasis from a giant's perspective. People cheer, Lord Uba, and then are swept away like sand. Day turns to night and then back again, 1,000 times in a cycle. But the lands and scene below lie unchanged, as though no one had ever really been there. A village then appears. Uba recognizes it as their hometown. Kobolds walk alongside humans and a few gnomes. One kobold waves another over and says, in that very particular kobold voice, "Hey, Snark, how's business? Oh, I heard the other day that Uba became an adventurer. Got some castle down in the desert or something real fancy-like." Their companion, a yellowish kobold, replies with a snort. "Fur scales? Well, wonder how they lucked into that one. And to think, they're in some palace while the rest of us slum it here." The first one turns back and says, "I give it a year before the place burns down." And their laughter kind of echoes as it starts to fade. We see a field of glittering green appear. It kind of zooms out into a scale, and then a multitude of scales until we see a great emerald dragon. They glance down at a dagger in their massive claws. Its emerald, set into the pommel, lies dun and lifeless. The voice says, "Unfortunate. I had hopes for the young one. Perhaps it was not their nature to go beyond what they were." The scene fades, and the void returns. Not white, but now tinged with blue. A new feeling enters. But before we get to that, I'm going to cut to Will. Will, for you, it is not regret that calls to you. It is instead a sense of failure. And I'm going to open it up for you to describe what scenes or person, thing, might just be one scene, is summoned as that kind of emotion or idea comes into Will's mind.
I think it's like in this white void, swirling around Will, almost like in every direction, below and above as well. It's the instant at which she stepped away from a path of her life. So she walks away. It's her leaving Breakers Hill as a very young child. It's her deciding that she's going to become an adventurer when she gets to Twinport, and then looking at that and stepping away from the board of it, like the job board. She's like got a dagger at it on her hip, and she's like, "I'm going to be an adventurer." And she, in that moment, was too afraid to be an adventurer. It's her leaving the Gathite ship. It's her leaving her fiance. It's always her leaving. It's always her choosing to not continue on a path. It's her leaving in that last moment Calla and not being willing to take Calla with her on the journey that mattered to Will the most. and then at the end it's leaving Keller and Vesta behind to go and fight the Beholder. And there's just this 20-year history of Will walking away from things, and she sees every time she took the step away as a failure to commit to something.
We see all of these things kind of enter in various flashes in different scenes until your void too resolves into a sort of swirl of purple, it's blue. As it does so, we then shift again perspective over to Medea. Medea, the feeling that calls to you is different than the other two. Fear reaches out and takes hold. What is summoned? What do we see?
I think at first it's this pale white void. There isn't a figure standing in there. And then there's a single dot, and it begins racing away. And on the ground, a mouse begins to chase after it. And then more dots. And then more dots. And then more and more and more and more and more. And the mouse is running in 1,000 different directions. The circle starts to go around. And they're looking around, and it starts to become this unmanageable mess. And it's still in this blank white void. And the mouse looks around at all of these dots as they circle faster and faster around them. And something in their minds tells them and drives them that for some reason they know they need to be chasing these things. That they need to have these things in their grasp and their possession, and they need to have these things that they can hold closely. And then, in a moment of exhaustion, that small mouse just decides to lie down. And they let the dots circle around them as fast as they can. And then they're gone. And that small mouse is left looking around for where everything went. And they continue walking into that endless nothing, unsure of exactly what happened. Like it was too fast. It was a flash in the moment of an eye, even though it's all that's really happened in this small thing.
This strange scene kind of begins to dissolve. All around you, you can start to see kind of grayness, like an overcast sky, as we then shift again to Alvaron. Alvaron, you instead feel a strong sense of loathing coming out from the void.
That kind of gray miasma that has permeated everything begins to give way as this sensation of walking down cobbled streets. And the gray solidifies into mist that solidifies into awnings, into walls, and the kind of sloping architecture that is common in a port city, where each successive layer away from the port gets taller and taller, so that the armaments of the city can fire if need be. And this feeling of walking downhill. The grayness of it gives enough familiarity, but foreignness that you it's like coming back to your hometown after you've been away those first 2 or 3 years of university, and you do recognize the winding turns, but this business has left, this family has gone. These children have grown. And Alvaron, walking along this path in the port city of his childhood, comes to a childhood home where the door should be is just walled off. There's almost the impression that he should be able to knock on a door, should be able to find his way home. But that foreignness becomes a scramble. And he goes to a window just for the window to be shut from the inside. And stumbles around to the other end. As he stumbles around the side of the house and sees the back door as it slowly dissolves into that mist. And then as the door dissolves, so does the rest of this vision go back to that gray, swirling ephemeralness.
As it does so, we see the swirl shift over to a kind of red as everything becomes a little bit darker with this sort of crimson color. We then, I will quickly do Sovereigns since they won't have very much time, but I think I'm just going to say what their feelings are and kind of a quick thing about them. For Sovereign, the feeling is more similar to the rest. It is a feeling of loss, and we see them on a mountaintop. They exhale, and their breath kind of fogs out, white swirling amidst blankness. The cold settles in. It is deep and feels peaceful to them. But the next exhale reminds of the void, as the familiar becomes unsettling, a swirl of snowflakes. They reach for an alpenstock, adjusting their grip on it, but you can see that it's too tall for them still. They seem young here. They're kind of looking around, listening for others, and burrowing deeply into furs that they can feel, but barely see amongst the snow. We see images of what we recognize to be a younger scene from Sovereign's life. Palatka, teenager, kind of chatting with them, laughing. Their parents around the fireplace, all four of them conversing, laughing. Talking with both old and young Caro when the former was still alive. And that all eventually resolves into a sort of multicolored space. Not quite like a swirling rainbow, but there are splotches that bleed into each other of different kinds of colors. We come back to Uba as the feeling returns, but this time it is joy instead. And we see flashes from a low perspective down on the ground, walking along a lonely road until the camera pans left and we see Will as they were dressed around the time you all met. We look to the right and pan towards the river. And then we flash to a temple, drinking and asking questions with Medea, Silvera, Alvaron, Calla, and Meeple's head peeking out of the kitchen. We move again to a campfire. Alvaron and Calla aren't there, but everyone else is having conversations around campfire. You see Pelagon on the ground, kind of low but being menstruated to. Gifts are then received from a shimmery emerald dragon as Uba looks around at newly equipped companions. Again, it flashes to Talamphagon, wandering the bazaar with Alvaron, meeting with Mel, the Susanna, Ort, Talosinon, a conversation in the sewers with an angel. The Ruby Palace, dazzling a crowd of nobility and dignitaries at a banquet in all of your honor. Showing Silverin their new castle excitedly, standing on the deck of a ship, looking at Alvaron, relieved as the blackened skies burns in the distance. Wandering through a mithril cave, feeling afraid but safe, surrounded by all of their companions. Finally, playing games at a beach party, the sun setting as everyone begins to sit down, pleasantly tired from day's excitement. The colors, which were faint, start to grow more vibrant as this happens. And we come around to Medea again this time. And the feeling here is safety.
It's an interesting one, especially for Medea, who's
Feel
somebody
free
who...
to take your time as well. And I meant to say this earlier, but if other people have like things or ideas, we haven't really needed it, but just hop in.
I think it's interesting because as far as Medea can tell when it comes to safety, it's a feeling that's always been so foreign to them. The idea of being secure in a position, understanding the place in the world that they're supposed to occupy is a distant emotion. It's something they've never inhabited fully. And so I think when it comes to safety, the closest they can well and truly imagine it are those brief moments of respite right after the most incredible battles of their life, the moments where, at least for them, they're mostly secure that it's done, that there's a moment that they can stop fearing for their life, at least for a minute. And it's definitely not in Horkantor, where they're running from the dragon, or running from the city after they've slain the dragon. And it's not after they've slain the fell prince down there either, nor the imposter king. But the brief moments when they free the dragon early there, and the breath slays the demon, and they can rest. And those slow moments of solitude out in that garden before they walk back to the city, most of it is those intermediary moments where they're traveling somewhere to their next moment of panic, where they're traveling somewhere to their next moment of fear. But when they do think of safety and comfort, they think of their feet on the road, they think of moving, they think of going forward. And after a while, as the emotion settles in, similar to Solverin, it's on a high mountaintop with a fire. But for Medea, it's clear up here. They can see everything below them. And there's a ladder and stairs to go down. And distantly, far away at 5 points, Medea can see friends and people and places they've gone. They can see places that they can revel in comfort, that they can watch it. They can see it, that with their own eyes they know it's safe.
Once more, we see the colors become slowly more vibrant as we move on to Will. And Will, the feeling that then enters into yourself is almost the opposite of what was there before. It is instead fulfillment.
I think for Will, it kind of bleeds a little bit together of that moment. It starts with the moment in the temple where everybody else was so willing to go so far with that cultist and Will like stepping away. But then as she steps away, she sees moments from their journey. And she's never in any of these ones. Like all of her failure ones, she was front and center of all of the failures. She's never in any of these. And it's Alvaron like standing in front of a kraken, like sword drawn. Like, and there's a feeling that she's getting of knowing that Alvaron is not going to fall to this kraken. And it's Medea talking to the angel and Medea wrapping their arms around Alvaron in the library in Tolosanet. And it's Selvarin dispelling the magic on Kalash. And it's Uba constantly like being terrified for their self and their mortality, but being willing to be the hero that Will sees from stories. And every single one of them, it changes from the what was true, the way that Will would tell the story back when Will started this trip, to the version where Alvaron is already in the Sea King's regalia fighting the Kraken. Alvaron is already the hero. And then Uba is already the Lord when killing that druid when Will meets them. And Medea is already the Pashir of a demon hunting like crew. And Selvarin is already decked out in with Kalash's totem and the shield of Mordain. And then it goes back to that room with the murderer, the cultist of murder. And it's 4 people standing in that room as heroes, and Will looking through the door at what they would become. And that's like when Will feels fulfillment of like helping these people become heroes that you could write songs and paint tapestries of.
It's
Oh, sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
And also of Kala meeting with Toralus. And it's not Kala as Will saw her in that room. It's Kala as who Will sees. It's the Kala that Will sees Kala becoming. A Kala that is on par with Toralus as one of the like most powerful wizards in the land. But that one even still is tinged with regret because it hasn't happened yet.
I think the colors now are growing almost like shockingly or unrealistically deep. As Alvaron, you start to feel or imagine virtue as that kind of comes into your head.
As these colors start to bloom a bit more, there's a kind of shifting and a lilting that comes to them. And slowly out of those colors and out of that motion coalesces 2 ships side by side with ropes strung across them. And it's obvious as each of the senses falls into place first. First, the sight and the ropes across and the smoke. Then the shouting and the war cries and the pain and the smell of acrid burning. in the copper mist of blood. And the touch of sanded boards beneath bare feet. And you hear your own breath in your ears as you run with a sword that is far too big for you, from one deck to the next. And as you jump, rather than land feet first on a deck surrounded by people who want nothing more than to kill you, you find yourself sitting around a campfire with twilight wrapping around you like a hug. And you sit, 5 friends, passing jokes, passing kindness. Virtue is not found necessarily in doing right or striving. Sometimes virtue is the kindness of people who would love you for what you are and what you could be. And that twilight does not pass so much as the next vision starts, but rather that twilight embrace carries the next vision forward.
I will quickly amend as Charlie was able to get back to me. So Silverian's first vision, as I described before, out in the snows, but instead of Kalatka, we actually see a different young Gathite who looks very similar to Silverian. They're trudging along when they get caught. Their brother stumbles in the snow, and they huddle together, trying to stay warm as no one else is around them. Forgotten or left behind. And in that moment, they call out to Mordain. And in flashes, time passes. Eventually, they are found. But we see the brothers' form being carried off for their loss. For belonging, as we kind of jump back to the proper order, we see instead Kalasht, tall, standing almost imperious, bringing Silverian into this new tribe. We see a ritual, a great bonfire burning high, drums and horns and all kinds of instruments being played as people dance, and different members of the tribe approach the young Silverian and their family, giving them gifts, various small common things, a hairbrush, an axe, a new set of boots. And then their vision begins to fade with this. As we come back around once more, Will, the swirls are so bright, but they start to coalesce into more recognizable things. You can almost see the fuzzy outline of something. And the feeling that comes to you, it's almost overwhelming, is hope.
I think Will, it transitions a bit again from the color of the future that Will sees sitting probably around a fire just outside Harkantor with Toralus, to that vision of Kala standing next to a vision of Will. And they are surrounded by, it's like it slowly rotates around them and then pans out, and it shows on all sides like peace and normality and life that is not constantly under threat by demons or constantly under threat by worry for the people that are around Will. We see Will's story and to other people's stories of Uber as the lord of their castle, being loved for their whole life as the hero that they deserve to be, and Alvaron as an old man, just like relatively low level priest of Semillus, but getting to be what was once the path that he walked down. And Medea surrounded by people who are treasured to them. And then the Suthana and the history books remembering the Suthana as one of the greatest leaders of the Elkar. And Melf and Toralus sharing coffee together, somehow the same age, but reading these history books. And Maple and Ort reconciling and fighting together. And then Kella as like a bard in the Imperial city of Rams, like the biggest bard that the world has ever seen. And Will lingers on that one for longer, like listening to a song that she knows she couldn't compose, a song that Vesta would struggle to compose. And then she sees the final like hope is her as she is now, walking into Breakers Hill and seeing the bakery running. And she just lets that feeling wash over her.
We then move on to Medea. This same strong feeling of hope enters into you, almost like a torch being passed on.
It's mostly, at first at least, simple colors. A blank canvas, and then a few start to swirl in, paintbrushes, long, broad strokes. And they start to form the images of people. And those people are walking along a long, cobbled road. And the image starts to fill in. It's a familiar sight. It's old buildings made of hewn stone and rocks cut into shape of people burly with heavy beards walking along on roads. But the buildings are older than most dwarven cities. It resembles a fortress somewhere deep. And in their mind, they can almost envision it. The image of that old fortress city, light still doesn't reach down that. It may never, but there's lantern lights that start to come on, street lights brighter than anything else. And it's almost from the point of view of somebody walking. And at first, there's good, strong legs taking them forward every step. And then they start to ache. The feeling of exhaustion and age passes on. And eventually, this figure, from which point of view is taken, reaches out for a cane. And the sound of the pitter patter of the cane on the stone, step by step, echoes in this. And they sit down on a bench, and they look around at this place. And they see kids running around somewhere that's not exactly a park, but something closer to a jungle gym, a place where kids can learn to climb, to run. And then there's the image of Alvaron sitting on that ship, their ship. Their face is old and grayed, and their eyes are wizened, and the sea salt has almost consumed it. The pupils have started to white out, and they stare out at the sea as the waves rush and crash across the land. And there's Will, sitting in some tavern and playing a song, and then stopping and deciding to sit down and make a painting, and then deciding to sew, and deciding between 1,000 implements before going home, because none of those are right. And they get back to wherever it is they live, and there's an older woman. Couldn't be older than, couldn't be younger than Will by more than a few years. She's got that simple face, probably a farmer's child. And she's brought something. She's got a little wrapped gift. She sets it on Will's lap. And she's got this look of success on her face. She's got a book by her side that seems to have been scrawled in 1,000 times, and she's got this gleeful smile even in her ears. And there's Solverin, trekking across the mountains, their face still hardened to stone, their eyes still wide. And behind them are young Gathite children, walking in their footsteps, their feet going in the imprints in the snow that they make each trek, every single time he takes a step forward. And there's Uba, sitting high up in their castle, and in the background of the castle, there looks to be some jester or child rummaging around in the cabinets, and Uba yells at them to stop, and they don't, and Uba runs over, and their feet are a little bit slower than they used to be, and their voice is more hoarse and more wizened, and they pull the kid off the cabinets, and it's not theirs, it's just some human child, and some elven kid is running around in the midst of it, and one of them calls them Lord Uba the Great. And there's no great riches that accompany this hall. And the jester who's sitting there laughs as Uba pulls them off the cabinets. And they head back up to that balcony, and they look at this now bustling landscape. People happy to see them. People who look at them, and there is a wealth around them. There is these houses clean and strong. There are tall silos full of grain. And there is a comfortable bed to rest on. And then there's the figure on the park bench, letting themselves rest on the cold stone, feeling their hand run across those minuscule cracks in it. And they finally start to close their eyes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Before you move to Elrond, I don't like breaking the flow, but I forgot Solverin. I had a really good one for Solverin.
Okay, go ahead.
So Will's vision of Solverin is there's no landscape, there's no place. It's just Solverin surrounded by like a fuzzy area, and everybody will walk past, and it's dwarves and Elkar and high elves and kobolds and every race under the sun, and they all speak to Solverin and Gathite. and it's the vision of Solverin with a new tribe, no longer half exiled, but now the master of a tribe that believe in the same way that Solverin does, of Mordain and of what it means to sacrifice.
I think we actually will transition over to Silverin as we see them standing in a desert, the sun high overhead and bearing down hot on a sweating brow. We see Medea as they once were, masked in the old armor, trudging through the desert. This flashes straight to a tavern. It is familiar to all of you. We see Alvaron sitting down at a bar, and then Will and Uba entering in as they glance over to Medea. Alvaron walking over to them, inquiring as to why they're here and if they would like to work together. Starting to have Uba in the background asking if a show is being put on. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just laughing. It's pretty good.
And that begins to resolve, or dissolve rather, into Alvaron's. That same feeling is passed on to you.
Worry about repeating myself, but the last one kind of fit this well. But I think, with this actually, as this moment dissolves, the sound of sand roaring in your ears comes into focus. And wind batters at you, and shadows dance in the distance of your vision and fades away, sitting in a small stone building, quiet, huddled, waiting, as Alvaron and Uba walk back into the room from a patrol and reassure you that all is well. All is safe as it can be here. And in this place that you know is surrounded by danger and storms and an oppressive firmament, you know that you are safe and you are joined. And as these two come back into the room from their patrol, the fire burns a little bit brighter, smiles deepen, and water tastes for a moment a bit fresher as you share it with everyone before the sand dissolves again.
Our last scene we go back to Uba. The colors appear again and swirl, devolving into the face of a drake. Golden eyes peer amidst glistening red scales. They're bigger now. They have wings on their back, and they look a little bit more like a small dragon, save for the white chin and underbelly that gives their true nature away. Sitting atop Kojin, as we zoom further out, is a young girl, perhaps a couple years older than they are now, transitioning into their teenage years. They giggle and laugh as the drake leaps, and they soar from the battlements of Uba's castle, where there might be a feeling of worry that would creep in. There is comfort here. The knowledge that the girl will be safe and is only one simple spell away from landing softly on the ground. This dissolves then into a series of grand adventures. We see Uba fighting against these fire, storm, cloud giants, doing battle with ancient dragons amidst a lair filled with riches, and standing over a defeated but once vengeful Narangor, finding treasure hoards and plundering them while surrounded with all of their companions. These scenes of glory fade into a beam of light, which becomes a window overlooking a scenic village. Near to the coast, a tree is sitting atop a hill in the distance. We see Uba and Will kneading dough under a now revitalized Fern's tutelage. Kojin and Kella can be seen in the background, pilfering cookies off a table. The dough, as we kind of zoom in on the kneading, becomes sand, and we fade into the oasis. 3 kobolds walking the road up to the castle. Eroz and Zed, Uba's parents, clearly by their looks, listening intently to another story. One of the parents filled with worry and concern, any danger that is brought up. The other laughing with each new twist of the tale. Inside the castle, Uba sitting on a desk, writing upon a ledger, denoting teams of adventurers, where they last were, what they were doing, requests for additional funds, and what they'll be used for. Notes scrawled in the margins on how ready they are to go off on their own. And this scene fades as all of the scenes fade. We see now, or Uba sees now, not a void, but a ceiling. Looking up, they blink, and it's the ceiling of a bank vault. And they glance around as each one of you begins to slightly stir awake, lying on cold marble tile. Glancing up, you can all see Vesta watching over you, playing on a lute. Beautiful woodwork with a dragon's head carved as the head of the instrument. They look down at you and say, welcome back to at least the Astral Sea.
I think Will looks around somewhat groggy and says, well, it appears we didn't die, because there's no way that in death I would be envisaging Twinport.
No, you didn't die. Although you were somewhat incorporeal there for a few moments. And you can kind of look down and you can see your like bodies are becoming more solid and real as you like are getting up and like coming to in this moment, as though you weren't quite actually there before, but you're started to materialize in this space.
Is incorporeality supposed to make you nauseous?
Had the exact same thought. It was that Alvaron just kind of dry heaves off to the side and just, Medea, remind me to stay corporeal. Then looks over at Will. How do I know the word corporeal? What? With that,
Medea did just say it.
with that, Alvaron's stomach becomes corporeal, and he's finally able to actually heave instead of dry.
As always, Will is not bothered by any type of travel or change in body.
You all see Kojin is kind of doing that thing a little bit like a dog, where they're just kind of like running around and like slightly hopping because they're so excited.
Did we get any visions from Kojin?
You did not get any visions from Kojin. I actually thought about it, and I decided not to do that.
I would,
partially because I knew I was going to already be talking a lot with Imris Saga.
I respect your decision, but I disapprove of the outcome.
Well,
I like the idea that Kojin and Uba share the same feelings about most things. Like,
makes sense.
Also, Kojin's only like 3 months old. I don't want to see what that unformed baby brain is seeing.
Kojin is, you just see like piles of meat, and that's it.
Regret, it's just meat. Joy, it's just meat. Longing, it's just meat.
It's meat, but Uba's next to the pile of meat for longing.
There we go.
Medea takes a moment, and they're like, am I to assume you can get us home, or?
Yeah, I should be able to do that if we have a bit of time to rest. You were only gone for about a couple hours. Impressive, really. I wasn't sure you'd make it back.
Just have to poke out a giant eye. That's all we needed to do, really.
He just laughs, I think.
So how long have you been here in your right mind?
That is a good question. Can't really say. Feels like a long time. Maybe a year or more.
Will supplies. From what I understand, it's been maybe closer to 2 by now. You missed
that feels
2
right.
tickets on the ship, and that was when I decided to. I became captain in the time you've been gone, and then abdicated being. You can't abdicate being captain. Stood down from being captain to come look for you.
She'll sweep off her hat and do like a very lackluster bow.
Just means my rate's a lot higher than it would have been. But yeah, around 2 years.
Well, that is a very long time. Sorry that you all had to come and rescue me. I'm supposed to be the one who does the rescuing.
There's time for
I
that.
don't know this person from Adam, so I'm just looking at them like, we don't get rescuing. We rescue people all the time. What are you talking about?
They're like a Taurus level hero, and everyone's like, this old person with a lute.
They held back an eldritch horror with the pure force of their mind. Please, that's a Tuesday.
Yeah, Will could probably do that.
We've got there's a year or two where you could say mass. Don't limit yourself.
I'll remember that. Well, at least we saved
I can,
all those people. And if you look around, you will notice that the tendrils have started to disincorporate slowly, almost as you were reincorporating.
Will's looking at the instrument of power and the astral strings, and kind of gingerly puts it down on the floor of the bank, and says, I can just try and cast one of these, and pulls out one of the many scrolls of plane shift that we have. Or, wait, we have this warp anchor that can just teleport us to wherever Kala is?
Well, there you go. Why are we even debating?
Look, it's very hard to remember that this item exists.
We should check to see, and Medea looks around if there's anything in the bank vault besides what Vestervale.
We can loot the Twin Pot Bank from the Astral Sea. I like it.
There does appear to be like gold bars and gold coins and security boxes. You do know that this is not real gold. It looks like gold, but it doesn't have the same kind of substance.
Medea just wants to take one and give it to Uba for the road.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
I assume Kella is there, because Will
Yeah.
would not have been as calm if Kella was not there.
Yeah, she was kind of sitting over. She was looking very worried as when you were first awaking, and I think she, now that you're all like standing up, she just goes to like hug as many of you as she can at once.
Tiny armed child.
Completely failing to do so, and probably only catching like Will and whoever is standing immediately next to them.
Oh, I don't even have enlarge to help that. Yeah, I think Will like gives Kella a hug and picks up the instrument and says, I think this magic probably will fade. We leave the Astral Sea, which means I'm going to have to wait. And she like clicks her fingers and changes it into a different instrument. Like the battle has still taken such a toll that she's forgetting things, and the emotional toll of the void. She says, all right, well, everyone, you can load up on as much gold as you like. You're not going to get to keep it, but if you want to feel rich for a moment.
I'd like to feel rich and for more than a moment, but I suppose that's how it is. When Vesta, do you have any business left in this place before we go?
Oh no, at least not for a while, I hope.
Did you actually think we were going to live?
I had faith. You found me, so I knew that you would have a better shot than I did.
Which god did you have faith in?
I don't place much faith in the gods, but I had faith in you, and I had faith in people. I'm a storyteller. I have faith in heroes.
Will looks at the other four and says, they do as well. Should I tell you, obviously having not told Vesta, since clearly they haven't seen each other for ages, Will pulls out the warp anchor and kind of gathers everyone around. She starts talking to Vesta and says, "Did I tell you that Syl spoke to me once? Like, in a way that was less cryptic than I expected it to be."
Didn't even know the gods spoke to people directly.
That's going to be an interesting story. Yeah,
And that
tell me
Alvaron
all
looks
about
over at
it.
Medea and goes, "Wait, your god doesn't talk to you regularly?" And with that,
Alvaron speaks to Semillus more than anyone. As the warbanker just shunts us through space to Kala.
I'm sorry, I'm having a legally blonde what? Like it's hard moment.
Yeah. What do you mean? Gods don't talk to you.
You
I'm just imagining Sullivan just death glaring. It's indistinguishable from Gaffite,
Yeah.
joy, but death glaring from the side.
That has not been my experience.
The closest I ever got was just a natural disaster, and that's about it. I can tell.
You will like almost get sucked in and then reappear. But when you do so, you kind of blink around and you are in Telanfagon at some like outdoor cafe as we see Kala is sitting there, Melf opposite, and Toralis over talking to somebody as all of the patrons and everybody on the street nearby are just staring at you guys.
I'm going to pull a seat up to the table with Kala and Mel.
You kind of just sit down.
And then I will drink whatever Kala's drinking.
Yeah, you have a sip. It's clearly coffee, like espresso style, straight black coffee as you take a sip. There are open tables nearby for everybody else to sit down, but they are definitely they're not big tables. These are like 4 people max tables.
Medea takes a second and announces, "Unfortunately, we didn't succeed. We only saved the town and found a hero of legend. Nothing else.
We did all die. We're here as ghosts.
But actually, we're just here to haunt you, Kala.
Just specifically Kala. All of us haunting
Your conscience is fully damned for letting us go."
I had a feeling that this would happen. That Will would haunt my every moment.
Will's
Well-
mind. As nice as this cafe is, I'm very tired.
You all look
Yes.
around. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I definitely could use some rest too. I'd love to leave you two to your haunting and hauntee business, but it's been a long day.
Just considering my own hit points, and this is also, I think this is the lowest on hit points Alvaron has been in the entire campaign, even as just a percentage of max health.
This is the lowest Will's been for a long time.
Yeah, I will show that just to the screen so everybody can see the HP pools. It's
Alvaron wants to be dry and witty and funny, and then touches his side and comes up with kind of necrotic touched blood and is like, I think I'm gonna go see a priest.
How long were we gone?
Cal says, well, as she look around, Mel kind of says, well, I think it's been 6 days.
Oh,
To your guys' minds, you've only been gone for 2 at max.
I think it was a day.
That's not too bad.
You rested once.
Prepared me for far worse. I was expecting to be gone a year and a day or some bullshit, but 6 days. Pff. I've had a hangover for longer than that. By the way, that is Alvaron saying that, not me. I've never had a hangover.
Well, sometimes you depends on how long you stay in there and where you go. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you don't. Could have been a decade if you weren't careful.
I suppose you don't have anything immediately useful to hand off to us. We can discuss this tomorrow and reconvene.
Yes, of course. The tower is open, unless you'd prefer the palace. I'm sure the Sultana would love to greet you all.
Will looks to see who is going to the palace.
I look at Melvin. Just has there been any mail for me?
I have received 2 letters, one for you and one for Uba, actually. And he will go and reach into a bag of holding and produce 2 letters and hand each of you. Well, they'll hand one to Uba and hand one to Silverin. To answer Will's question, I think both Uba and Silverin are thinking about heading to the palace. It seems. Uba would like a bath.
Medea is going to the palace too because they also want to take a bath. And then they're heading back to their barracks.
I think I'm gonna go to the temple, make a donation, heal up a little bit, and then fall asleep in the acolytes' quarters.
Great.
Make my way back to the temple in the morning.
Will doesn't want to have to deal with the responsibility she probably has nobility-wise to inform the Sultan of what happened yet.
Yeah.
So once everyone says what they're doing, Will kind of looks at herself and Alvaron and clicks her fingers, and I'll cast Seeming to look like Alvaron. And say, now I don't have to... That's not the voice. Kali, you're doing the talking. Now I don't have to worry about my responsibility to the Sultana for a bit.
I'll do my best to inform her gracefully.
Tell her that I had to stop somewhere else first.
I'll tell her you're still off fighting some epic battle, and you'll be back soon.
That seems less believable, but sure. And Will walks off, trying to emulate Alvaron's walk poorly.
Imagining somebody doing a Mick Jagger impression,
No,
swaying.
it's the Saturday Night Fever walk.
I was gonna say, there's some sort of sailor's gait that I don't quite have that's quite pronounced.
Yeah.
No, it's
watching-
specifically not a sailor's gait because Will would be able to do that. It's like Alvaron walks like this, and it's like a Ministry of Funny Walks walk for a bit.
Should I be offended or flattered or drunk? I should be drunk.
People from ROMs, they walk like this. People from Twinport, they walk like this.
People from Twinport, they don't walk because they've lost their legs to muggers.
Ooh.
When you say that you need a drink, Alvaron, a server does come over and goes to take your order because, at some point everyone stops staring and just keeps on walking.
Goes about normal business. Has Will left at this point? What's Will's go-to drink? I would know this. I'm sorry, but I'm blanking.
If depends on whether or not Will considers herself to be working. And if it's not working, it's really any alcohol. And if it's working, it's anything non-alcoholic. She doesn't really care. But coffee in a cafe.
Can you spike this? I point to I point to the coffee beverage that Will drunk earlier, and just kind of appropriate. Can you a boozier version of that? I need to be awake for the next hour, and then after that, I'm fine.
Okay, we could make that happen. They will bring back a coffee with whiskey in it.
Oh, hell yes.
Actually, it's definitely coffee plus scrum. Now that I say that. It's not a lot of scrum, but...
Scrum
you
is
say that like Alvaron can tell the difference.
Well, one burns because it's hot coffee, and one burns because it's got scrum in it. That's the difference.
I don't drink. I don't drink it slowly enough to notice between those two, Jack. It's. I tip 30%, and I think Alvaron is going to be making his way to the Temple District after that to donate, heal up, and also reconsider some life choices. Get off the counter. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Sorry, go ahead.
Will remains Alvaron for exactly the amount of time required, and then doesn't like not having hair. So, goes back to being Will as soon as it's possible.
we see Vesta kind of look over at Melf, and Torless now is like rejoining everybody, looking like, what did I miss? Like, what just happened? I stepped away for 5 seconds. As Vesta will give like a wave and say, "Oh, Melf, Torless, nice to see you all again. Sorry I was gone for so long." Just waves. He says, you know, this time it's you, next time it will be him again. Luckily I'm retired, so I will remain here." And they will sit down and begin chatting. They will say to Will before you leave, don't go gallivanting off anywhere. I have to reward all of you for your trouble.
Oh, what would that reward be? Oh wait, no, so it's well, fuck.
Will kind of goes to speak, and then I think probably it would make sense that everybody's like our reward, and Will just lets that happen because Will doesn't care that much about the reward for this one, but has been that person in the past, so we'll allow it.
Still laugh. Right. All of your rewards, you know, monetary compensation I find is good. I have other things if you need help with something. Just you could bank favors with me. I'll always trade in 1 or 2.
I just assumed this was a freebie for Will, really. I'm just sort of doing this out of a, ask.
Oh, I've done enough free heroing that I have enough money to spend that I'm willing to reward
Don't
the
give up
impossible
money.
feat.
Do you have a estimate for what kind of money we're talking here?
I could give you all for saving my life. That's switch. It's hard to switch between those two. For saving my life, I could give you all 10,000 gold.
Consider this, Vester. What about the fact that we also had to save 4 of your simulacrums? So maybe 14,000 each is more appropriate?
Well, the unfortunate truth of the matter is that they are dead now.
Will is unmoved by that point in her haggling stance. She says, Kala, how much are we worth as adventurers on the open market? I feel like I should be offended by 10,000 gold each.
We still have some scrolls of plane shift left if we wanted to take you back.
I think Will says, none of us can cast that reliably enough to really enforce that threat.
She raises an
If
eyebrow.
possible, I would like to roll persuasion with
Sure.
Kala's help. All right. Let me finish the shuffle and then I will do it. We haven't haggled together for so long. I clicked it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Kala
We're good at haggling together.
Kala just looks like, raises an eyebrow and like pulls out a quill and opens a notebook. Says, "Well, if we're talking about the open market, and I'll remind you, Uba got a castle. They didn't have to save anybody."
I am the Sultana's confidant. I could live happily in the palace for the rest of my life.
Vesta like looks and well, I'm open to discussing terms, I suppose.
We have to rinse this bitch for all she's worth.
Why don't you all give me a figure that seems to make sense in your minds, and I'll get back to you on that.
Will says, you should pay Alvaron, Silverin, Medea, and Uba 12,500 each, and I'll do this one for free. She just wanted to flex that she could have convinced Vesta.
She says, okay, I see how it is. Tell you what, I will give each of your friends 15 plus a small favor if they ever need one.
Hmm.
Like looks at you of like, this is what I'm here for, to get you all better deals as heroes.
Yeah, yeah. Will's just our fucking manager in the future.
Yep. But yeah, then Will says, Vesta, I'll talk to you. What time? Like she looks up at the sky to see what time it is. What time of day in Lanfragon?
It's early. Like you guys are you're like looking and you're like, man, I'm gonna be so out of whack because I'm so tired right now and it's so early in the morning. It's like 7 o'clock.
Oh God.
I think Will is not exhausted like physically, but the mental aspect of like manipulating the astral sea took a lot out of her. So she says, perhaps we should take in a late afternoon show. We can take Kala and Kella and catch up.
Andrew, I do have one question. The astral sea seawater that I collected over there, I checked the vial around my throat as all of this bargaining and back and forth is going on. What's the vial look like?
It's not empty, but there's less of it than you put in because you filled it. It's like maybe a quarter full. And it almost seems to you to be like the clearest concentrated form of water that you can think of. There's just hints of like reflection that remind you of the starlight from before.
I will be keeping that as a personal memento, and that will not be part of my trade-ins to the church, I don't think. Though I will want to share it later with Priestess Nivani. Is that the name?
I just
I have
want
to
you to
check
go
my own
and
notes.
use the wrong name.
Naina.
Naina.
Really funny.
Listen, I have 2 different yellow pads for this campaign, okay?
I get
am
it. I
doing
just
my
really
best
liked
here.
the idea that Alvaron is like, my confidant within the temple, whose name I definitely know. Hey, you!
It's 7 a.m. We just defeated a BBEG. I'm tired as shit. The coffee's not hitting right.
You know, when we were talking about I fully expected Will to just say, well, do you happen to have any rare books that make you better at reading or something? You know?
No, that would have been the Jack thing to do.
No.
I mean,
yeah, Will doesn't care about that stuff, but now I am sad that I didn't ask for that. I didn't get anything else. Just say, hey, do you have a tome of charisma? Hey, Bard, did you have a tome that you didn't use for some reason?
Woof.
But no, I think Will heads off with Kala after making afternoon plans with Vesta.
Right. I think in that case we see you all. You'll stop for a moment to kind of discuss everything, and some of you quickly down coffees before you all kind of start to separate to move about your various different pieces of business or relaxation, as the case may be, that you're having in Talanfagan. And we do see, people going to bath. Alvaron, you head over to the temple what are you doing at the temple?
So specifically, this is more of a. I feel like the temple definitely knew that we were heading on some sort of grand journey into the astral sea, and I did have an obligation to return. Acolytes, when going on missions, I assume have to come back and report. And I'd like to imagine that there is kind of an inscribing process of, what happened on your voyage, and there can either be an oral tradition or maybe there's a written history with it, but this becomes a part of that local temple's history of this person went on this journey and they recount it And I feel like in true mid to late adventurer fashion, Alvaron shows up with the ego generated from this much of an adventuring life, half of a coffee left from the cafe that we just left, and I've kept the mug, and also the quarter-filled vial of Astral Sea Starlight. Is just like, hey, real quick, does this blood look healthy to you? Before probably being shuffled off to
Yeah,
some
and
portion of the acolyte's quarters.
moved away. As,
Because there are people here to actually pray and
Yeah.
receive the word of Semillus.
somebody will come by to heal you up a little bit. I think what that looks like is that they have a very old sailor, like retired. You tell your story, and they record it in this knot-based writing system. So you see there's like long strands of like thin rope hanging in one section of the wall, and it's all like these different knots that you can like touch, like you kind of do it by touch rather than sight, and they record them that way. So this man is like very quickly doing all these very intricate looking knots that to him it's like nothing. He does it as quick as you're speaking almost.
Is his job called a not stenographer?
Sure.
Great.
What
I'm
about
leaving now.
What about a stenographer?
No.
I thought of that. It was too. It
Too on
was
the
too
nose.
clever. That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, I see why. I see why you did not go with it.
Oh,
Ramona. I love it though. I
I'm
love it though,
leaving now.
Andrew.
man.
Totally understood. And then probably fall asleep in the acolyte's chambers. Wake up for my shift of sweeping and scrubbing out one of the salt pools at low tide, and then make my way back to the palace for the main group. Slightly better healed, slightly poorer from donations, and probably just as tired as when I arrived, if we're being honest. But
Yep, that makes sense.
Well, the idea that you fought a beholder and then you had to do your acolytes chores as a level
yes,
11 character.
100%.
Yeah, you gotta pay your dues. It doesn't matter how good you are when you come in. I think we will then go over to Medea. Uva and Silverna, of course, are both there, I think, taking baths with you. But what are you doing with this kind of free time before you kind of have all collectively decided to meet back up at the palace?
Medea takes a very quick bath in private and then heads back to their little guild with the members they've trained, and they recount the story to someone they've designated to the storyteller of the group this far, who essentially like orates their grand journeys while they sit like next to them and like look nice, and they make it like an epic journey functionally. And they've sort of taught this person to mimic Will a little bit in how they tell stories. There's a fondness for it.
Uber, really. Uber's a better performative storyteller than Will is.
And you know, after that, they're sort of like talking about like the journeys and what happened, and they're informing, you know, about their future plans and what they want to do after this. And then, like 30 minutes after this is done, like this takes not super long. They immediately go to the barracks and they lay face down in bed and have someone wake them up for when they need to get somewhere, and they just immediately fall asleep in full armor. There is zero
Sure.
disconnect between once their face hits the pillow and once they are just like lights out.
I think during that meeting of like future plans, somebody unfurls a blueprint that they've had made of the ship that you recovered. It is not that long before it should be fully out, and they've made some like these are the things we need to repair. I think like we've done these adjustments because we don't understand how this parts of this thing works. But we can like we can make a stopgap that will function. It might not function as well as originally did, but it's still going to
Yeah.
function well enough, and nobody else has one of these things that we know of.
Hmm.
Right. I think then we go to Will, as you spend your time throughout this day.
Will probably goes and has a bath, probably with Cal, and then we'll go to sleep and wake up like her dream is just the void again, and just like the marching through failure to fulfillment to hope. And she wakes up, and it's not even been that long, and Cal is probably off reading somewhere because it's so early. And Will sits down and, like, for the first time, kind of thinks of Kella's apprenticeship and that she's achieved a lot with teaching, like, Uber why just murder is bad. And, like, a lot of this stuff that she's achieved, and she's like, but I have other responsibilities, and those responsibilities are to my family and to my apprentice and to my partner. And she starts thinking about that stuff. And she starts to write a lesson plan, and immediately, after like 15 minutes of getting nowhere, scraps that and gets a piece of finds a lantern and gets like a magical, a primed scroll, parchment essentially, and she starts to work on a spell, drawing on the recent like stuff that happened in the Astral Sea and with the Beholder and with the Void itself. Even she just starts to like scribble down the thoughts of a spell onto this piece of paper, and then eventually starts to map out a more accurate version on her spell cloth. Even though it's a bardic spell, she's like using her magical stuff to kind of keep track of everything, as opposed to putting it on normal paper. But yeah, she kind of does that and is doing it in a very relaxed way because she loves magic and stuff. So will eventually, when it's time to go, feel as refreshed as she probably would have from sleeping, I think. Because she also didn't need to heal a lot.
Right.
Given she never gets hit.
I think we will also see Uba and Silverin talking in the baths. Both of them discussing going back to their to Uba's castle for one. For Uba, Silverin wanting to head back to the tribe and like what they might be doing next for them. It doesn't take too long before these events end and you find yourselves all meeting back up at the palace sometime late in the evening, probably a little bit after dinner, feeling much more refreshed after having rested or done whatever they might find relaxing. And everyone is gathered around. The Shizana is there. They've already been kind of, filled in on what happened, and have congratulated you. And now it's just all of you together, with nothing pressing. No next adventure that you need to get to immediately in front of you.
I think once we've been talking for a while about just reminiscing, probably, about the things that we've done. Will's giving Uber a hard time about not being able to like defeat a druid, like that kind of stuff. I think Will says, "I think I'm going to take some time to focus on Keller's apprenticeship before we need to do anything else major and pressing and world-saving."
Next month, then?
I was thinking a little longer. But
Ubu,
there are other heroes.
yeah,
That's true.
Ubu will say, I was actually thinking of staying at my castle for a little bit too. Sovereign said that they would probably stop by, but anybody else is welcome too if you want to, you know, have a place to rest and hang out. I think I'm gonna put down a circle, teleportation circle. I'm gonna hire someone to make a permit.
I'll
Um,
do the first day for you if you like before I head off to work on things.
They nod. Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, Uba has lordship things. I have apprentice duties that I should probably be following up on. What?
probably should stay with my guild for longer than a few days at some point.
Silverin, I think, will chime in. Perhaps a year then. That way, Uba's circle will be complete. We can all meet at their castle, perhaps.
Will nods and says, I was going to suggest the Raven's Rookery for the nostalgia's sake, but teleporting into our friend's castle is probably a more fitting reunion.
I
The
think
first
a
time
year
ever
at
that Will and
sea.
Medea have said the same thing at the same time. Just look at each other.
I'm probably going to take some people to train in Harkantor and get used to that place.
Hmm.
I don't really know where I'll be, but I think I'm going to be focusing on the training. And also, kind of looks at, is Kala with us?
Yes, Kala and Kella are both there.
Sure. She kind of looks at Kala, and she's probably talked to Kala during the dances. And maybe just relaxing with my partner.
Maybe in need of a captain sometime soon, but I'll let you know when that is.
Sure. If I don't answer, it's because I'm focused on this for the year. But after that, sure.
Elron, what do you intend to do with your year besides stick with your temple? Work up the ranks?
I think a year at sea, actually. And not as captain, but serving as I was meant to initially. Serving as an acolyte, and then returning as a full initiate after a year away, earning the right to actually practice the rites. I'm technically no more empowered than as a street sweeper at the moment, but
I think you could handle a street sweeper.
Depends on the
it
city.
has to be easier than being a first sword.
I can contact one of my other ships and see if they have an opening for a acolyte of Similis, if you like. Probably the Gathites won't, since they worship Vera. But the Dancing Deer might. It's a nice
Actually,
ship.
quite like the idea of a jaunt aboard a ship where no one knows my name. I think I might just take you up on that, Captain.
Will nuts.
Kala will say, it'll be in Le Mans too, so maybe you can go home.
There's a letter in my breast pocket that I haven't opened yet. And at that, I just kind of look down and I'm still waiting to. I haven't had the heart to open it yet.
Does
Thing-
run Lamanta Rams.
A short trip.
I think I need to head home, but not in the next year. but when everybody is ready, I will let you all know.
I think Uba and Silverin at least nod.
Yeah, Will nods.
I have a feeling one of us is going to have to head back, and they look to Silverin. At least in some manner, this journey seems tied to us. But we all need the rest. We can't keep risking our lives every day for the next portion of it. At the beginning of this, Alvaron was just a petty criminal who was running from a pirate, you know.
I would say at the start of this, you're all petty criminals for the behavior, but you're all heroes now.
It says, that's probably true, but I still take offense.
I didn't mean it to be offensive.
Good, because I took offense.
Sometime in the next year, I probably will return to that little town we stopped by on our way to the dragon and see if I can make amends for our mistakes there.
I think Will is paying attention to the conversation as she normally is, but is also on a normal piece of paper sketching a kobold and dragon grain teleportation circle, and says, well, the year can start. Doesn't have to start tomorrow. We could all go for a jaunt down to the Lord's castle. Surely a banquet for the returning hero.
Uba thinks for a moment. She says, that sounds good. I should probably warn them, though. And she starts to tell Silverin to send a message to the overseers of their castle.
A moment for Will of like, I'm the person that normally would do that, but then sees Silverin like more comfortable with sending. I don't even know anyone there anyway. But it's still a little bit sad.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, that works for me. The thing I've learned from our last journey is that I need some adamantine.
Just sure. There's something to take out of it. I've learned that with beholders, you want to stay in their anti-magic field.
I didn't think they could just turn it off. I thought it had to stay open in some way, but apparently not.
Maybe we should acquire some books on beholders.
That's true. I've been very narrow in my study.
Are they going to be that much more common in whatever we wind up doing?
Alvaron, this might interest you. Have you heard of a thing called an aboleth? I'll tell Alvaron a terrifying tale of aboleths. They live in water and they can't be killed.
Upon hearing about ancestral memory and everything else, Alvaron completely decides that this is absolutely something that needs to be purged from the face of the earth, and begins working up a genocide in his spare time.
Medea just thinks of their grandma that swims a lot.
I really like the idea that Alvaron comes back and the Seeking Regalia is all like emblazoned with death to Aboleth. like he's just so stringently genociding Aboleths.
It's not the worst character motivation I've ever come up with, but
I mean, Aboleth are a problem if you are near one.
They are.
The final enemy of this game is going to be an aboleth with a shirt that says "Death to Alvarons."
To be honest, Alvaron's final thing is a multi-class and a barbarian just to rage once against an aboleth. You kind of see it. Plus the whole mind.
Barbarian rogue isn't bad.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I feel like if you've already got a sorcerer dip, though, you probably shouldn't take a barb dip.
Switch to a zealot.
I think Will starts to even this late. The bazaar is open all night, right?
Yeah, the bazaar is open always. There, it's not as busy. There's certainly less stalls, but it's open all
I
night.
think we'll probably ask specifically if Uber wants to go late night shopping for stuff for the banquet. Um, but when at the thing also goes to find a jeweler to buy like a ring for Kala, and be like,
Mm.
so one way to cement the future, and like is getting Uber's the aficionado of shiny things, but also Will's closest friend. And it's like, what do you think of this ring? What do you think of this ring? Trying to sway Uber away from suggesting the biggest one.
Yeah, they're kind of like, this is a tough decision. And I kind of want to. I'm going to message Mercer in the chat right now, and I will have them decide, if you're okay with that, what the ring kind of looks like.
Yeah, I think Will's instinct is like, I'll get a ring of spell storing. Like that's a good thing, and that's why obviously Uber's a better choice for this kind of thing.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm also happy to flash back to these moments.
Yeah, we can
So
do some
it's-
flashbacks when we come.
Also, I'm going to buy some books on Aboleth and Beholders now that Will has also made herself concerned.
I think. Was there anything else? Excuse me. Anybody wanted to do before you guys head to Uba's castle that like night?
Probably a quick trip to the bazaar, but I'll message you about that in the coming
Okay.
weeks.
Yeah, people go to the bazaar.
Will also talks to Suthana, and it's like probably tells Suthana more accurately what her plan is for the year. And it's like, I will not be around for a year, but afterwards, I will be at your service once more.
Yeah, she thanks you and she says something like, "That's a problem. We'll talk when you get back, and maybe you'll be even more helpful."
Will smiles and says, more helpful than always off dealing with problems not related to Lanfagon? Probably.
Well, you have a banked amount of goodwill from the first time you helped me.
Will smiles, and I think will take the cloak off and say that if anyone arrives that needs your aid, you can have this to give them, or to put into the treasury, since it is the cloak of Niniel, right? The cloak of Sal.
She takes it and she nods as she kind of runs it through her fingers.
Not planning to fly away from anything for a long time.
Well, I hope you enjoy the time with your friends before you go.
I'm sure there's room for a Suthana at the banquet.
Maybe. Do you think you could get me an invitation?
Oh, I'm sure that there's a standing invitation for you at Uber's hold, but
Maybe
I could put in a good word.
Maybe I'll just crash the party.
And then I have nothing else to do.
I think in that case, we'll do flashbacks, but we will we'll come back to some of the things that happen. I think we do. It's a little bit of a montage where we see you all arriving at the at Mael Larath at the Oasis. Cool turquoise waters, refreshing. Uba hosts you all and throws a feast, including for the town, celebrating safe return and a sign that the lord of this house will be here. for I think a very extended visit after their earlier, very much briefer one. And we will kind of freeze frame on you all eating and laughing before we come back to it. Thank you guys for playing. I really like that session. I was obviously disappointed that Charlie and Marissa couldn't be here. I'm glad that they were able to message me their things for that first bit. I kind of figured this one would be shorter. I think if everybody was here, it would have been closer to like 3 hours, but yeah.
It's cool how even the ones that, like, how well their answers fit in with what we did, even though they had to give them without the constant text of ours. Like, we had each other's to bounce off, and theirs still matched that really well. So, yeah, it was good. I mean, you know that I like messing with time and visuals and stuff, so I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I figured it would be a good end to Will's bit.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
delete the Cloak of the Owls.
Yeah, it's gone.
Delete it in case you need it.
Nobody
gets to fly now.
I have the stats and I have it elsewhere. But yeah, I think with that we will sign off for our break. Thanks for anybody who came to watch or who watches over the break. Hopefully when we come back, we should have some I'm thinking I will try to get new art commissioned for everybody's characters in the break. And some emotes. I'm hoping to get some custom emotes for the channel and come back and have a lot more of that and set up. So be on the lookout for that. Join the Discords. I'll send any updates as I get them. But as always, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.